It was quite an historic event because one of the persons was still actively involved with the Roman Catholic Church in a high position of Archbishop, namely Archbishop Emmanuel Milingo, the former Archbishop of Lusaka in Zambia, as well as a director of a special office in the Vatican for immigrants and migrant workers. Known also internationally, he had already received international acclaim as a healer and exorcist.
Very spiritual man.
Very spiritual man, declaring that in 1974, some 5 years after he was appointed Archbishop of Lusaka by Pope Paul VI, and ordained a bishop, an archbishop, by Pope Paul VI in 1969 at the age of 39.
Very young.
He went from priest to archbishop.
Incredible.
Incredible. That he was coming to the United States to be married. This was unprecedented.
Yes.
And
not just to be married, but to be married by Reverend Moon.
Of course. I mean,
the founder of the Unification Church.
That just created, not only sparks, but an atomic bomb explosion. The whole city erupted, and then thus sent out tidal waves even to the Vatican with this news. Considered horrific.
And you were there. You were there. You were at the heart of it.
I was sitting right next to him. Having been a Roman Catholic priest for 15 years, and now the founder and archbishop of an autonomous, independent, and African-centered Catholic expression of the faith known as the African American Catholic Congregation and its Imani temples. We were close brothers. But what happened after the wedding is that we had a press conference, and the message of that press conference went worldwide, and that is when the Vatican first became aware that one of its archbishops, one of its outstanding, although controversial archbishops, had actually been married by the Reverend Some Young Moon. This was drama at its zenith.
Yeah.
So during the summer of 2001. The Archbishop went about America proclaiming the age of a married priesthood, that he had no desire to leave the Roman Catholic Church, had the greatest love and respect for the Catholic Church, and a very personal, deep respect for Pope John Paul II.
Yes.
And his desire was to go to Rome, to return to Rome after 3 months of marriage. We got married on May the 27th, 2001. The beginning of August, he's going to Rome to meet the Pope at his summer residence at Castel Gandolfo, where it's much cooler in the hillside when things are cool during the summertime, to appeal to the Pope to allow him the option of remaining married and seeing this as a viable option.
Now, in a sense, sorry to interrupt you, but in a sense, he wanted to reform something that has become a central part of the Catholic Church.
Right, he wanted to reform the Roman Catholic Church without the express permission of the Roman Catholic Church to get married in the first place. Yeah. He figured, I'll marry and then I'll
worry about
the details later, right? So when he went back and the reason why a lot of people do not know the real reason as to why Archbishop Emmanuel Milingo returned to Rome in the summer of 2001. It was because he had received notification through some personal contacts in Rome that the Pope was near death, and that the news of Archbishop Milingo's marriage that seemed to have created an international scandal for the Roman Catholic Church was hastening the Pope's last days, or moving him closer to death. And because Archbishop Milingo and the Pope were so close, Archbishop returned to Rome
out of a concern to show respect.
And that's when we heard that famous utterance of Pope John Paul II, for the sake of Christ, return to the Catholic Church. And that's what he did. The Vatican said that he renounced his marriage, but the Archbishop will tell you he never renounced his marriage. He always considered himself to be eternally married to his wife, Maria Sung, once that blessing was performed by two parents, and that he was disciplined for a year by having been sent to Argentina, and then for the 4 years after that point, until the time of his departure, he was in a prison, literally in a prison, being guarded all the time, having no freedom to move about.
You said literally in a prison. You mean in a prison-like situation?
Yeah, a prison-like situation. I don't want I don't want anyone to think that he was a Saddam Hussein up in a prison,
I understand,
awaiting trial. No, but he was the atmosphere. He was in that ambiance, that psychological prison where he was not able to move around. He couldn't move about freely. He had to always have a guard.
Tell us something about Maria Sung. When she heard the news that Archbishop Milingo met with the Pope and that he had asked him to come back and essentially forsake his wife, what happened?
Well, when the Archbishop arrived in Milan, the plane flew from New York to Milan, and then they were to go to Rome or to Castel Gandolfo to visit the Pope.
Right.
They were immediately separated by these Italian handlers, these women who were supposed to have had the Archbishop's vested interests at heart. And they put his wife up in a hotel, his wife and Zachary up in a hotel, told them, we'll take care of it and all that. These Italian handlers never did take care of it. Maria was stuck with the bill at the end of the stay, and they whisked the Archbishop off in a car and eventually led him to Castel Gandolfo, where he met the Pope.
Yeah.
But anyone who knows the Archbishop's wife, Maria Sung Milingo, knows that you are confronting the Spanish Armada, to put it in the mildest of terms, because she is a very strong,
the Vatican had
powerful,
no idea.
woman. The Vatican had no idea. Well, there was nothing happening in the news. And then all of a sudden, Archbishop Milingo shows up with his wife, and it becomes
an explosion.
An explosion. Yeah. And Maria is there at the Vatican while she's trying to find out what they've done with her husband. And she's there praying in St. Peter's Square. If anyone has ever been to Rome and seen that majestic, magnificent square there in front of St. Peter Basilica, one can be just swallowed up, engulfed, entrenched in Catholicism. The nuns and the priests roaming through, the seminarians, of the faithful going through the square to make
prayers. And the press was very attentive to her situation.
Very attentive, but it was quiet in the news. So the only news was Archbishop Milingo and his wife. So Maria has decided that she's going to fast until the Vatican officials release her husband. The Vatican is engaged in interventions between Archbishop Milingo and Reverend Shanka, who's representing the Unification Church and who was really the sponsor of the Archbishop at the time. And Maria is receiving reporters on her deathbed, almost fasting to
essentially a hunger strike.
A hunger strike to the point of almost death, determined that she would not eat a morsel or drink a drop until the Vatican allowed her to see her husband. Well, that eventually happened. And what was supposed to have only been a 5-minute encounter turned out to be a 2-hour.
And what happened as a result of that meeting?
Well, of course, the Archbishop, under a lot of duress, said to Maria that they had to not see each other as husband and wife anymore, but as brother and sister, brother-sister relationship, and that he would never forget her, but it couldn't be. Things just couldn't be the way that
they had
hoped. The Archbishop relates it this way, that he received revelations from God and from the spirit world, that he had to be willing to put his life on the line for the salvation of the Roman Catholic Church, to purify the church, to cleanse the church of infidelity, to heal the church of some of her ways that were not of God. And he said that the voice from heaven said, others have gone before you and have given up their lives. What makes you think you're any better? You have to get up and
be willing to risk your life.
Be willing to risk your life. So he planned his escape over a 2-week period, and literally on the last day of his time there at Zagarolo, he celebrated, he exposed the Eucharist for adoration and veneration. He said Mass. He had lunch, and when it was time to take a siesta, while the nuns were washing the dishes, he escaped down the hillside, slipped out, and a car awaited him to whisk him off to the airport. And everything else is now public knowledge.